you, former NFL scout, texted some other people in the NFL, scouts and executives and otherwise, and asked them some questions about the 49ers roster. And we could do this for a million teams. But what'd you get back? What was the point of asking, and what'd you get back?
Well, I just asked, what do you think about the team? And then I got some, generics. They're really good. They think they're they have a lot of good players. And then I specifically asked, who are their best players?
We're glad you're watching this video. Like it and subscribe to our channel.
Do you know that stats show 50% of you are not subscribed to our channel? Go subscribe.
We're sponsored by Tito's Handmade Vodka.
#1 vodka in America.
And check out our podcast in the description below.
Do it. And what do you think about them, right? And the first thing I got back, and I think sometimes with offensive linemen, if they played corner or they played wide receiver, definitely if they played quarterback or running back, it'd be clear, right? When you are Barry Sanders, when you're Adrian Peterson, when you're Aaron Rodgers, my mom can see, like, this guy is remarkable, right? In high school, the star players, even if you're the #1 left tackle recruit, like the guy that plays running back is just going to get more pub. And I got back, Trent Williams is easily the best left tackle in football. And this goes back to last year, making the move that somehow they lost arguably the best offensive lineman in the history of the franchise. A franchise with 5 Super Bowls, a franchise that's been to 4 NFC championships in the last decade, and this guy was their starting left tackle on all 4 of those NFC championships and both those Super Bowls. And they
no respect for Bob St. Clair, but that's fine.
A little before my time. That's why I'd say Joe, for the football nerds, would be considered probably the second best offensive lineman, at least his career with the Niners. They dramatically upgraded. And like I said, Joe, who's a friend of the show now, he's a stud. But that's how good Trent is. And I think Joe would be the first to tell you that, right? Like he's in a different level, even on the level of the high-level guys. So they have the best left tackle in football. Like that is something pretty important. But what I was told about people that watch the Eagles game, they said, holy shit, Fred Warner like Trent, there is nothing he can't do. Like what makes Trent unique is he could have played in Jim Harbaugh's offense. He could play in Kyle's offense. He can run block. He can pass block. He can catch linebackers. He can block power rusher. There's nothing he can't do. And I think Fred is that same thing at linebacker. I think it's fair to say that Fred Warner right now is the best middle linebacker in the sport. And remember last year when the Niners, not the Super Bowl year, but the COVID year when they lost everyone, Fred played in that game. And remember the kind of thing that kind of went viral is Aaron went up to him after the game and said, "You're the best middle linebacker in football."
Yeah.
And Aaron is king. I mean, he's not one to just throw that shit around. I think he meant it because I think he's a modern-day linebacker. He's probably more speed than power, but that's really important now in a game that's much more sideline to sideline. I mean, look at the Eagles, right? They tried to do this because it worked for them week 1, and it was harder week 2. And part of it is the corners are physical with the Niners, but Fred, he gets out to the quick screens. You see it in college a lot, just a quick screen to your playmaker and let him just go. Well, it's not just the Niners' corners come downhill, and then you got 54 flying like a fucking missile, And it's a rare, like Kuechly could do that. Willis and Bowman could do that. It's just a rare group that play that way. So they have 2 guys that are the best at their position, which, I mean, is at 2 pretty premium positions, I'd say, right?
Yep.
And then I think the next 2 players are pretty well, established. It's Kittle and Bosa. And I think where Kittle, and we do this, right, and most fans do this, is you see a game, and we talked about this a little bit on Sundays. The first thing you look for is George is like, how many catches and touchdowns does he have? I took him on my DraftKings team because I'm like, well, the Eagles don't have great safeties or they have slow linebackers. I can see Kittle having 2 touchdowns in this game. And then it feels like he's not even part of the game. Well, I think the GMs, and if you went to Gannon, the Eagles defensive coordinator, he'd be like, holy shit, that guy was just blocking the shit out of the edges. And what happened in the second half? They ran pitch after pitch after pitch. And do you know what the Niners, when you have George Kittle, when you start getting in that flow, it's clear they're running the pitch to his side, right? Wherever 85 is, that's where they're coming. And usually Juszczyk kind of goes out there. The fans were just naturally not going to give that guy as much credit, but in the scouting community, because they know how great George is like a pass catcher and with his yak, right? But what he can do as a blocker is just something that I would say the two best tight ends, right? There's a group of three guys. The most established is Kelsey, longest resume, deserves to get the number one spot. And then there's like Waller and Kittle. And Waller has been consistently more dynamic now in the passing game. But let's face it, he is a true – I'm not going to compare him, and this sounds bad, but Aaron Hernandez, obviously not the person. Waller's become, they have nothing in common that way.
Say that.
But he is just an unstoppable pass threat, right, Waller? Unstoppable. I mean, he's incredible. I would say he's probably more dynamic as a true pass threat, but he doesn't hold a candle to George at the line of scrimmage. And ultimately in the team George plays for, that is very, very valuable, right, to his coach. Some teams, like, for example, the Chiefs, I'm not saying Andy would throw it to George a lot, but they don't run it that much. They don't even care about the run. What would the Ravens do with George Kittle? Right? They would love George Kittle. How often would they run options? And then the last guy was just Bosa, who's just, I mean, so 4 of their players, right? Left tackle, pass rusher, and he didn't say, like, Nick's not the best pass rusher in the league, but he's an elite. They considered a blue chip. That would be his grade, top 5 guy at his position. So you have the best left tackle, a blue chip pass rusher. Those are the 2 most important positions after quarterback. And then a tight end, which is definitely not a premium position, but when you factor in the Niner style, and Fred, historically linebacker, I know when I worked for the Eagles, that was like the least valued position, and I disagree, And granted, I didn't disagree at the time, but now that once I started doing this with you, we were around Bowman and Willis, and now seeing Fred, I think if you get the top guy, they just change the game. Now, you could nitpick, would I rather have a top corner than an average linebacker? For sure. But would I take Fred Warner? Would I rather have Jalen Ramsey or Fred Warner? I'd rather have Fred Warner. Middlecoff's philosophy of position importance, because I think I'd rather have a good D-line and a middle linebacker. Same thing with Bowman and Willis. Would I rather have Bowman or Willis in their prime than Jalen Ramsey? Yes.
Yeah, I think Fred can be around the ball on more plays, right? Just
and he's
given
elite.
the nature of the position.
And like those 2 guys, he's elite in pass coverage.
Quick moment to tell you to get in our DraftKings game. It's linked below. Play any game, really. Use the code HAM when you sign up at DraftKings.
Do you want to gamble? I know I do. And where I do it, mybookie.ag, promo code HAM1. Right? You can pick the ball off. You can cover people. That's a game changer.
So that's a lot of good stuff. I think one thing, a lot was made this week, a lot of discussion about Kittle, because he only has 8 catches this year. He had 4 for 17
Didn't he have
yards.
17 yards? Yeah.
4 for 17 against Philly. That's not a good pace, right? At that pace, he'd have barely more catches than he had all last year when he only played half the season. It's less than 70 catches.
I think a lot of people take him in fantasy, right? And over Waller.
Yeah.
Or
and I also just think if you're a Niner fan, you think he's part of what makes you dynamic. So when you watch a game where your offense doesn't look particularly dynamic, but what I would say is, like, any game they have where they don't give up a sack, Kittle probably had a really good game, right? So that was just one take on him, because most players can't impact the game if they only have 4 catches, and their job is to make catches. On Trent, feels kind of like Trent Williams might be one of the best players we don't talk that much about in the whole NFL. Maybe it's because he's an offensive lineman.
Sometimes happen with offensive linemen, I think.
It does, but I feel like we talk about Joe Thomas way more than we talk about Trent Williams. Now, Joe's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
But I think Joe Thomas falls under the category of like the Seabass syndrome. When you're the best player by a country mile at your position and on
Marcel Reese,
a 3-win team, you just become a star.
John Kondo.
Yeah.
Obviously,
I'd rather have Joe Thomas than Seabass, but you know what I'm saying. Like Seabass became so famous, he was on the Raiders. Joe Thomas, the Browns sucked.
Well, I also think the other element to this is Trent Williams. Trent Williams last year was his first year on the Niners. They weren't that great of a team last year.
Yeah. This
year, if they're a playoff level team, which we think they are, but in a couple of weeks he's going to play against the Cardinals. How much is he going up against Chandler Jones? Like, have there been that many games where we're just watching the game, a major platform, and it's okay, let's show you, here's 8 highlights from Trent Williams today? I don't think there's been a lot of that. I'm not blaming, I'm not saying it's anybody's fault, but
I know this. I would put Chandler Jones over 69, not 71. And
I mean, he may not be over there. I don't know, but
yeah. I think that's part of the problem.
So George Kittle's going to be over there then.
Yeah. Well, did we talk about this on the pod? Because I know we bullshitted about it a little bit before we got on Sunday. Was that I think a big reason for that game on Sunday is that once McGlinchey got smoked by Sweat, and it was like, oh my God, this could happen a lot this game. I think 85 went to go hang out with McGlinchey for a little bit longer than people quite, unless you're a true football nerd or a coach, quite realize. Because I noticed 85 with his hand in the dirt. Not dirt, actually. It's nice grass in Philly.
Yeah.
At least early in the season. It gets a little brown as the season goes on. It's cold. But it felt like 85 was next to 69. 71 don't need 85 next to him. Unless you're just going, it's fourth and whatever, 44, you go left, 85. Hey, guys, you fucking know what's coming. We know what's coming. Let's see who's better. And the Niners can, and that to me is part of having Trent Williams and George. When you get into a big spot, and you saw it with Lamar, like, hey, guys, the ball, this is going to be Lamar running.
Well, and also
left,
when it comes
right,
to
up the middle.
running the ball, McGlinchey doesn't need help on that one.
No, he doesn't. You could put George next to him, too. Like, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, McGlinchey's a good run defender.
Yeah.
Or run offender.
Offender, yeah. Jordan says Kittle's basically being paid $15 million to play right tackle.
Which is fine, though. I mean, if the Niners, didn't we talk about all off season, and now it's finally here? It's pretty clear whether Jimmy wins the job or Trey gets in. Kyle, wherever the stats end up, he is going to run the shit out of the football. They have 17 running backs. They drafted 2 in the draft, who now one's hurt. About 7 running backs are already hurt. Niners running backs drop like flies. Pretty, you got to be pretty physical.
I've been saying this for you. Why do Kyle's running backs all get hurt? Is it because he only wants players that play a certain style? Those guys all play running to brick walls? Why are all these guys always hurt? I said it last year. If I were a rookie free agent, I'd be not a rookie free agent, a free agent. It's like, yeah, I want to play for Kyle because I might have 4 touchdowns on Sunday off the street. But I also might run to a brick wall 14 times.
Jerick McKinnon, not totally Kyle's fault, tore his ACL. Raheem Mostert, who Kyle made, but then got injured a lot. Trey Sermon, 1 carry, 1 first down.
Coach Timo says small backs. Those 2 guys, Mostert's not small.
Skinnier, but he's taller. Trey Sermon's big. And
Hyde's not small.
No. Did Hyde ever play with Kyle?
No, I'm sorry. I meant 28 Ohio State, Sermon, Hyde.
Yeah.
And then Ohio State's got another guy who looks like those 2 guys and wears 28. You notice that?
Yeah, they just find a lot of 6'1", 225 5-star backs. You know, that's what I'd do too if I was Ohio State.
So, I mean,
I do think sometimes with the bigger backs, someone sent me a picture. They were at UCLA. Our buddy who listens to this podcast, Vincent Recruity, and he took a picture with Ryan Matthews. And Ryan looks like, at
the game? Ryan was at the game?
Ryan was at the game, yeah.
That's cool.
On the sideline. And it looks like Ryan, looks like in his prime. It's like, does this guy gain weight? Is this all just turned to muscle? What the heck? And then you realize he's a freak. He was a guy that got hurt a lot. And when you run hard at people, the Niners do not have, under Kyle, and part of it is the zone running scheme, juking. If you're a juke guy, like Shady McCoy, who's an all-time juker, right? He was kind of not comparing him to Barry Sanders, but they both had this incredible, Chip hated him. Because in the zone scheme, we don't want you dancing around. Hit the hole. Well, it's like, hit the hole. I got these linebackers about to crush me. That's going to hurt. And if you're running behind a good offense, run blocking offensive line, you're going to build up speed. There's going to be some collisions. A lot of the Niners' injuries do happen down the field.
Jacques Patrick, the guy the Niners signed, 6'2", 234 pounds out of Florida State, John. XFL, played for the Vipers in 2020, 3rd in the XFL in rushing yards.
I do think the running back position, if you are just going to lose a ton of guys, is by far. I think they just steal this guy off the Bengals practice squad. I think I read earlier today.
Yep, Jacques.
They could do 7 of these moves.
Florida Gatorade Player of the Year, John.
So this guy gets injured 3 years later, 3 weeks later, grab another one.
He's a blue chipper.
Yeah. Well, he was a blue chipper, then he got to the NFL, and now he's an XFLer.
Well, I just mean, like, to me, blue chip is, you're right. The guys you listed are NFL blue chippers. I'm just saying this guy was a blue chipper most of his life.
Yeah, some guys maintain it, like Trent.
Just less. Julio. But it just gets cut down. Every level you go, there's less blue chippers, right? Yeah. Right. I led Helotes Little League in home runs in 7th grade. I had 1. No, I had 3. I won the home run derby with 1. I wasn't a blue chipper at any point. No one was like, this guy's physicality, 200 feet. This guy's physicalities. No one ever said that.
To dead center? What was down the lines?
200 all the way around.
And you clear that 7th grade?
Yes. 7th grade. Usually 7th, 8th grade. Now it's a 200-foot fence
Fast pitch?
in those little leagues. The players pitch.
I know.
We pitch to each other.
I'm fucking with you.
So anyway, no, that's I think one thing that happens, and I find this more in college than the NFL.
You know the pictures of the dads like lobbing it up to the little kids when
Oh,
they're
yeah.
like 9?
with like another little kid as the pitcher, just standing there who doesn't actually pitch. He just chases
Yeah, he's
down
supposed to play D.
dribblers. I think one thing that happens, I've said it before, and because I say it a lot because I have to be cognizant of it myself. I think when you watch a team a lot, it's very easy, and it happens in college where I'll look at like a top 25 and be like, that team's not a top 25 team. But really, if you go through a top 25, if you look at most teams, if you go look at Clemson, just pick a team. There's like 2 or 3 teams in any given year that are like just top to bottom. You wouldn't change anything, right? That's not most teams. And that team doesn't always win the championship. Like how many teams coming into this year would you say, if you had asked around the league universally, people would go top to bottom, that team's got it all? How many teams coming into the year?
I think Tampa might have been the only one. Yeah.
Like Kansas City even, and we're seeing it right now. Defensively, they got some things to figure out.
They were also 14-1 last year in games when they were like something with some shitty defensive stat. So the point is, like, yeah, their defense wasn't even good last year.
Might be a little worse this year though. But it's been 2 weeks. We'll see. Herbert,
Honey Badger was, in the COVID list. He came back.
They're just, I thought he had a pick.
No, I'm saying he was back for the Baltimore game, but he hadn't been practicing. My point is they don't care about defense.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I mean,
how many teams beat them with that
complete
with that shitty defensive performance? They don't have Lamar.